Now, before I go on, I know I said no more Colin Baker. He's done. Umro Nost, gone, done. We covered him. But I, in my infinite kind of case of if I have money and I have an opportunity to buy something cheap, I'll do it. Big Finish had a sale, a small little 2 day sale, where they were selling all of the audio dramas they had that featured a celestial toy maker. And I already owned one of the reviews you might see. Don't know, I'm kind of on time, kind of squeezing for time here. But one that was worth checking out is the Nightmare Fair. Now, the Nightmare Fair, the reason I'm doing this is because I kind of mentioned in the prelude video they planned out a season before they even had to do trial of Time Lord. But again, the show got canned and put on hiatus, and some of these stories were written. There were 6 stories. 4, from what I know, at which that I remember, had scripts. 2 were only had brief outlines. One of them eventually got turned into an audio drama. 3 of these missing stories got turned into novels in the Target Books range. But a majority of them, with a bunch of other scripts that they had, were turned into Big Finish audio dramas as a part of the Lost Stories range. I have the very first release, which is a poignant thing to do because this was the very first. This was going to be the first story of that season, the Nightmare Fair. And the Nightmare Fair, there's a couple ways I have to look at this. As a story itself, it's a lot of fun. It starts out with the Doctor and Perry going to Blackpool Pleasure Beach as they were supposed to. If you ever listen to the story the story that would have taken place before this had been on television, Revelation of the Daleks, they made this whole thing about how I'll take you to. They cut it off, but he said Blackpool because the show's future was a little uncertain, so they had to cut that to, you know, keep that off. So they go to Blackpool, and it's very much. It's not like I don't know why, but I was suspecting something like the Mine Robber. For some reason, the Celestial Toymaker screams that kind of story, and in a way, he does. One of the other ones I listened to, Solitaire, is a lot like that. I've never seen a reconstruction of Celestial Toymaker yet. One note thing to make about the Celestial Toymaker before I go on, he was played by Michael Goth, who would eventually play Alfred. So any of my comic book people who are listening to this would love to know that. He's not played by him here in this audio drama. He was too old by the time. This was made a few years before he passed away, but he was kind of too old. They use the theme park idea to their fullest. Some of it was weird. One kind of set piece was this ride that Colin Baker appeared at the opening of in character, and they were going to use that as a setting for something. It screams 80s. It's a script that screams the 80s, which is why I think I kind of like it. It felt like I'm listening to an episode of the show at the time. Like I'm listening to a missing story, very much a lost story. But there's they're on a roller coaster. There's a part where Perry and someone who has I can't remember his name, but he was missing his brother. That guy himself is a very good companion. I wish I could remember his name. I feel bad because I liked his character. He got along with Perry and the Doctor very well, and was like a one-off companion for that story. But there's this part where they're attacked by they're in a mining ride, like a I don't know. I'm imagining it's a Pirates of the Caribbean-esque ride where there's miners singing. Well, they come to life and attack Perry and the other guy, and it's a lot like that. And the climax of this is the Doctor and the Celestial Toymaker playing a deadly video game for the future of the planet. See what I mean by how 80s this is? It was coining into the video game craze. Yeah, this story is you could tell it was written in the 80s, and I'm glad that's preserved. You could easily have taken this script and modified it to any time you wanted, present day or the future. I liked that it was based in the present, in the time it was written. I'm glad they had that much respect. Another thing about this is the way it's made. The way it's made is they don't do it in the 4-episode format as Big Finish has done. They actually did very similar to what they did at this time. They would have done the 45-minute format, even though they did these for like 50-something minutes. A little longer, but hey, they have their creative freedoms. And the music makes it feel exactly like that. The production itself, and I don't quote that enough, but the point was to make it feel like, oh, this is a lost story from that era specifically, not new stories in that era, like written with a modern sense. These are throwbacks, written as a throwback story. And I really enjoyed it. I liked that idea. Colin Baker himself he's, I don't know, he's not what he was in that time. And he's not really what he is in the Big Finish. Is that they found a way to mold it where he's a little bit more stubborn than the Big Finish one, but he's not as kind of, full of himself as he was in season 22. They kind of found a balance. At least you could tell like he naturally has grown to be nicer, and that's a good thing to see. Perry herself is like the one alien thing about this because Nicola Bryant is far improved as an actress, so it's much more of a treat to listen to her. But she's playing Perry, and I don't know, like I say, this is written like a story in that era. Perry is written exactly like that. She's not useless. She's doing things. She's a little bit more proactive. I think Graham Williams himself, because this was written by former producer Graham Williams, and this was released much after his death, of course, but he basically understood how Perry was written back then, so Perry's written fairly the same, though gave her some funny lines, and they definitely have a much better chemistry than they had even then. And I thought they had a very good chemistry back then. Celestial Toymaker himself is like the reason to watch this. He's on, like, you're just paying attention even more when he's in his voice. This guy just has this kind of nice mystifying voice that can get very dark and very frightening. I don't know. I haven't even seen the remaining episode that exists from that story. I want to, but I haven't at the time. I really did like he very much treated Colin Baker as if he was William Hartnell, because his only appearance in the show goes all the way back to William Hartnell's time. And I don't know, I kind of felt the click, that feeling that they know who they are. They both have that sense, because they're both played by completely different actors, but you can tell these are characters who still know each other. And I don't think it's, as far as I know, he doesn't regenerate the same way. One thing about this story that I find kind of odd, only because of its place in existence now. Now again, if this actually got made, this would have made more sense. Now it's a little strange that this is here, but I don't hate it. And the thing I'm just trying to say is the fact that they gave an origin to the Toymaker here. I'm a little fascinated by the idea of giving that kind of character a back, especially because now I am of the note that this does take place in, because Doctor Who doesn't have a quote unquote official continuity. No one in the BBC has stated that television's official, and my rule is simple. TV gets top priority, but there's no unless it's disregarded by television, like say Sarah Jane Adventures contradicted the fact that basically with an offhand line of dialogue stated Ace is alive, which is contradicted by Ace's death in the comics. So unless the TV show contradicts logic from that, stuff you can fit it in your own canon, and even then you can mix it up. I'll be all timey-wimey if you have to. Again, they did that to high hell with Perry. But now, the actor who played the Celestial Tormentor, he's played by David Bailey, I think. He is great. He's worth a ticket of admission agreeably, and is definitely the thing to look forward to in this. Um, and that's good. That's good to know. It's good to see that the main kind of, especially when you're showing him as the main point of a sale, like they were like the way they were when I got this. It's good to see that they did that. The Nightmare Fair is, I don't know if you aren't turned away by the era of Doctor Who, because this thing is very much like a Colin Baker story from the TV show. It's slightly better written, and I don't know how much of it was adapted to work better, how much of the script's intact. I have no reference. I know there's a novelization out there, but I'm not going to try and hunt that down. I liked a lot of the core performances. I think it's fun above all else, and I really do appreciate that it feels like a throwback to that season, much, much more than the regular audio dramas. So I wouldn't, if you're ever thinking of getting one, this is a good one to maybe start with. It's not the best one I've heard from a Big Finish. There are far better ones that are, don't have as, I don't know, I can't say they don't have as much cheese factor, because one of my favorites is very goofy, but makes it work. This just, if you like the 80s, if you love 80s Doctor Who, if you didn't mind Colin Baker, get this. This is a, if this would have happened, I think this would have made his season a little bit better. Would I have preferred this story over something in Travel Time Lord? If you're comparing it to Terror of the Vervoids, yes. So yeah, I thought the Nightmare Fair was is a good place to maybe go if you want to try Big Finish as a whole, but still kind of get more of a classic Doctor Who story.